We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here today. Exciting opportunity for us. I'm Lori Atwood Ramos with the Region 1 Education Service Center. So happy to be here. Happy for your time and attention today. And happy to help try and bridge the gap to get more local fresh produce into our school cafeterias. So we have our panelists here today, so thank you for your time also in being here. We have Joseph Hogan with the McAllen Farmers Market, and Abraham Lopez with FAR San Juan Alamo ISD, and Shakira Regosa with Tierra Preta Farm and Centilli. So thank you all. We'll get into some panel discussion in a moment. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about, as I'll be your moderator for today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Region 1 Education Service Center and what we do and what we are. A lot of folks, our school district folks, know us very well, but we have a lot of growers, producers, and other support folks in the produce industry here today. So talk a little bit about what we are. So there are actually 20 education service centers across the state of Texas. There's a little map of all of them here. We are actually created by the legislature in 1969 to assist school districts. So basically everything we do is to help school districts. That's everything from transportation, school cafeterias, to teachers, superintendents, and board members as well. So we provide that support to those school districts. And our purpose is to assist school districts improve student performance because, of course, that's why our education system is here. Also to assist school districts to operate efficiently and economically. And then lastly, to carry out any of the mandates of the Texas Education Agency and the Texas Legislature. So they can at any time say, this is what we want you to do, and we have to be ready to make sure that we implement that for our school districts and have that support in place for them. So the Region 1 Education Service Center area covers 8 counties, including Brooks, Cameron, Hidalgo, Jim Hogg, Starr, Webb, Willacy, and Zapata. That includes 38 school districts and 10 charter schools, and we service approximately 439,000 students in that area. So what we do is to assist school districts in operating more efficiently and economically. We have some purchasing cooperatives that we have that we administer. One of those being our Child Nutrition Program South Texas Co-op. So that's really what we're going to be talking about more today. In these cooperatives that we have available, districts can participate in any of them. They're not required to, but the purpose, of course, is to have that aggregated buying power collectively. So we can come together with greater buying power and also get those goods and services that our school districts need at a lower cost. So our Child Nutrition Program South Texas Cooperative is one of our longest standing co-ops. We actually started in September 1999. So this year will be our 25th anniversary. So exciting to have that. Currently we have 67 school district or members. That includes 59 school districts, 4 charter schools, 1 private school, 2 cities or counties, and then 1 college that we also support. And we have 16 competitively awarded contracts just to support our school cafeterias that we do for them. So that definitely saves them time and effort in having to do all of those bids individually as school districts. So we help with that. So I will turn it over now to Robert Mayave. He's going to talk to us about our fresh produce bid that we recently conducted for our co-op members. So you want to take it over here? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lori, for that warm introduction. Really appreciate it. Well, as Ms. Lori mentioned, my name is Robert Miave, and I've been with the Education Service Center for going on 2 years in September. And prior to that, I used to work for Mission CISD, where where I did procurement with the school district for nearly 7 years, and then transitioning over to a field supervisor, which I did there for roughly 8-9 years. And then I transitioned over to Region 1 Education Service Center. So the first item on my to-do tasks was to incorporate the CMP STC fresh produce bid. So as I started getting that ball rolling on getting information for this bid, first of all, let me go down. Sorry about that. So what I started doing is I sat down into the drawing board and wanting to get forecasts from all of our school districts and knowing what is it that our school districts are utilizing. Quantities, and if there are any new items that want to be incorporated in this fresh produce bid that they are currently utilizing, maybe some other school districts are not using. So with that said, I started obtaining forecasts from the school districts, and ventured off and started doing some research, getting prices and whatnot, and building up that RFP. But before I go into that, let me backtrack a little and just talk a little bit about the background and context of Farm to School. First of all, I would like to ask how many folks in the audience are from school districts, child nutrition? Raise your hands. Good, thank you. I'm not too sure many of you are utilizing our fresh produce bid. If you are, thank you. If you're not, we welcome you to, okay? And show of hands, how many are farmers, growers that are in the audience? Thank you very much for your services. I mean, after today, after going to the site visits, I want to say thank you to Tierra Prieta for allowing us, to go into their home and showing us their process. I mean, it was amazing. We went not only to their location, but we went to Real Fresh, also where they showed us about crop covering or covering crops. I never knew about that, much less about molasses or utilizing molasses to what that they incorporate, and when they're prepping their soil, right? Even what was the other thing? Fish carcass. I mean, seriously, I've never thought that fish would contribute a lot to farming, to growing crops, but eventually that's what works. So that was very informative information. So now I get a general idea of what the farmers go through just to prepare the fresh produce that we incorporate into our child nutrition program departments. That was fascinating. So I would probably say that on the Farm to School, the importance is, why is it important for us to incorporate Farm to School in our school districts? Well, for one, it builds economic development, right? I mean, we are here to service not only our students, but our community, right? We want to be there to assist. It's a lot of work to prep to get that fresh produce at our tables, at our school districts, right? And that's one thing that we need to see as well. It's not all just about procurement, but it goes back to how it got into that school district, right? From transportation, logistics, prep, packaging, everything. There's just so much hands that get involved in prepping for that delivery of your fresh produce products. Public health, we were talking about organic. They were talking to us about organic and the process that they go into, or that they incorporate in preparing produce organically. That's a lot. It is, but the importance. So public health is what goes into that as well. Education. We were educated today, not only today, but yesterday as well. When I sat in some of the classes, I learned about soil fertility. Whoever think about soil fertility, but it's there. And it goes back to the fish carcass that they utilize for that, and the molasses also. So that was really interesting. The equity and the community, again, like I touched earlier, we're here to service the community. Our students are our community, but not only them, but we also have stakeholders, shareholders that get involved, organizations that assist as well with grants to prep us for educating us on the importance of preparing and selling and growing, harvesting fresh produce, right? So yeah, those are just some of the importance of what Farm to School is all about. So that is what we are here to advocate. As big advocates for child nutrition, fresh produce, I firmly believe that it's really important that we do reach out to local farmers, growers, and incorporate that locally grown fresh produce into our school systems. I firmly believe that that's really important. So going back to when I was prepping for the request for proposal to launch to to obtain offers, I did reach out to our child nutrition programs, CMP, SEC members to get surveys, responses, and some feedback that we got or that we received was school districts' biggest challenges with purchasing fresh produce from local farmers, growers, the cost fluctuations. I know there's a lot of prep work that goes into getting that fresh produce delivered. So yeah, maybe it's a cost factor, higher price, supplier not having adequate inventory to fulfill the order. I know there is an amount of small farmers that they only could supply certain, or they're real limited on the amount or the quantities of products that they could that they could grow. So that may be one of the factors. But I mean, everything's doable. So as long as we work together and come up with an idea, how can we both meet in the middle as far as incorporating that, even if it's a few cases of radish, for example. I know radishes was a big topic. Actually today when we were at Tierra Prieta, I know that they harvest radish. So I got the opportunity of seeing the process, and I think they have a cleaning room where they were prepping the radishes and cleaning it. So that was really interesting. The limited amount of produce availability, as I mentioned earlier. So in December the 14th of 2022, I had the opportunity of, the team and I, we created a workshop to invite child nutrition program key members and growers and farmers to just collaborate and get some ideas. What is it that the school districts are incorporating in their school districts? What are they utilizing? What are the students like? All those kind of key questions. And, and also asking the vendors, what kind of products do you sell? What kind do you all carry, you harvest? Can you all grow this for us? Or if we were to give you a certain amount of forecast for the year, can you all meet the demand, right? So that's what this workshop, it entailed, was just a collaboration. Let's get some ideas, let's get this ball rolling, right? Let's start this process, right? So that occurred on December the 14th, 2022. Right after that, we did have another expo. This was our Keeping It Local Expo, which occurred on March 23rd, 2023. So again, we invited all of our child nutrition program key members, decision makers, staff members, and we reached out to our vendors as well to kind of like, on this expo, it was more of the grower, farmer, distributor showing the items that they showcase, what they have to offer. And these were the folks that attended on that expo on that day. So we had a good turnout. Again, we got to collaborate. We got to taste test a few items, take some freshly squeezed grapefruit and orange juice from U.S. Citrus, for example. I mean, by the way, they have some really good freshly squeezed juices. So if you're in the market for that, I'm not promoting them, but that just came back to mind. Anyways, these were some of the folks that attended on that expo on that day, so it was really great. It was. And here's just a little timeline revealing or shedding light on the fresh produce RFP timeline. So again, going back to September 22 through August, the August of 2023, we just started doing that was what we call the exploration day phase, and including keeping it local, events that we had, gathering surveys, members' forecasts, and preparing for the solicitation. And then on September 2023, we launched the request for proposal solicitation via our E-by-1 procurement portal system. So this is a system that we submit all of our requests for proposals. So we send out the invite to all of the produce companies that have registered through our E-by-1 portal system. And we do invite for vendors that want to show or that show interest in conducting business with Region 1 Education Service Center. We do highly recommend that they come into this E-by-1 portal system, log in, and then create their profile just to get their company registered. Not necessarily they are automatically an approved vendor, but it gives them the opportunity to submit any offers or any RFPs that we submit through that portal system. And then in November 2023 to current, we did contract award and management monthly prices. Any adjustments that we do came into play. So currently we do have the fresh produce bid RFP 23-0136 as what I like to call it, because I refer to that number. But that is a fresh produce bid that we currently have on hand. We have currently 4 awarded vendors through this bid. So again, going back to the effective date, so we launched it right after board approval on November 16, 2023, and it goes into effect, or it goes through August 31st of 2024 with 4 one-year extension options available if the awarded vendors are in agreement for extending, or if they want to participate in that extension. What I normally do, I'll go ahead and I'll send out an invite to the awarded vendors with the extension packet that needs to be filled out, also with their Form 1295, a W-9 form, these documents that need to be signed and submitted to us, and letting us know if they do agree into participating in that extension. So currently, the 4 awarded vendors that we do have under this bid are the Institute for Ecology, Scholarship, and Health, or Verdant Exchange, Labatt Food Service, Lopez Vera Produce, and Nature Produce. And we did send out a survey to our members, just asking who are currently utilizing our fresh produce bid. So here were the results. We have about a little bit over 44% utilizing the bid, and 28.9 said no, and then we have 26.7 stating that they are utilizing, or they're on their own on that. So on the blue section, we do want to increase that percentage. So hopefully after today, maybe we could reach out and increase that number for our next bid extension. So what are some next steps for our CNP STC Fresh Produce? As I mentioned, the extension, the first year extension will be coming up shortly. So at this point, like I mentioned, I will be reaching out to the awarded vendors, sending that invite if they do agree on participating for that extension. As I mentioned earlier, vendor opportunities. Any vendors that are showing interest in conducting business with Region 1 Education Service Center, they could go into or log into the Bonfire E-by-1 portal system, and they could create their profile. It's user-friendly. Don't get discouraged when you go in there. It's fairly simple to create your information, your company information. And again, it opens doors once you become an awarded vendor. So yeah, I mean, we have roughly, we have more than what, 10, 19 probably RFPs available right now, more or less around there. Some documents required for fresh produce RFP. We look at the Good Agricultural Practice or the GAP certification, Food Safety and Modernization Act, FSMA compliance, HACCP procedures. If you have your HACCP procedure in place, that's very important. Coming from Child Nutrition Program side, that was one thing that we always expressed, was to ensure that you had that HACCP program in place as one of your standard operation procedures. Any food recall procedures that you may have, we would like to know about what procedures do you all go about when there is a food recall. So these are some of the documents that we do ask that you submit if you are submitting RFPs for food products. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and transition over the presentation to Ms. Lori Atwood Ramos, and she'll talk more on the new release that just came out 2 days ago, or yesterday.
Yes, so we did get some good news yesterday. I don't know if y'all have seen. They announced some new school meal standards to strengthen child nutrition. One of those changes affects how school nutrition programs can apply geographic preference. So it gives some more flexibility to you local growers and suppliers, and also our child nutrition programs in purchasing local produce. So perfect time to announce it right here, right? So effective fall of 2024, the final rule will now allow for locally grown, locally raised, or locally caught as a procurement specification for unprocessed or minimally processed food items in child nutrition programs. So the final rule continues to allow state agencies and program operators to adopt their own definition of local and does not prescribe a federal definition of local for the purpose of procuring local foods for CMPs. So this really gives a lot more flexibility. We can now make those requirements that we want to purchase a locally grown agriculture product. So that is wonderful news. Of course, that information has yet to be filtered down to our child nutrition programs from the state agency, which is the Texas Department of Agriculture. So we also have to kind of wait to see. Sometimes it's their interpretation also of these rules. So we'll see. I'm sure there'll be more information and resources coming soon from the Texas Department of Agriculture, and hopefully we have another opportunity to share that with you all when that happens. Okay. We also have some upcoming events, and I know we had some cards outside the door. We have a vendor outreach event that we sponsor on September 24th, 2024. At that event, if you are interested in getting signed up in the bonfire portal to receive bid opportunities, this is your opportunity for us to help you with that process. We can help you anytime, but we have an official, vendor outreach event on this date. So help you get set up in that bonfire portal. Is very user-friendly, very easy to use from a vendor perspective, so please don't be discouraged by it. And we also have coming up our South Texas Co-op pre-conference and food show. One of the things we're going to highlight at this year's food show, it'll be at South Padre Island. So who doesn't love to go to South Padre Island, right? One of the things we are highlighting this year will be a locally grown produce. So definitely going to make that our emphasis of this event. So we're looking forward to that. So if you would like more information on any of those upcoming events or how we can help you get registered in that bonfire portal to receive bid opportunity and notifications, please call us. we want to expand those opportunities for our local growers and those suppliers. So I know we only have 4 vendors currently awarded on that fresh produce RFP. Our whole goal is to get more products on there, to get more vendors awarded, specifically those local growers and producers. And even see how we can expand it from just fresh produce to chicken and beef as well. So looking at those opportunities as well. So here's the Region 1 ESC procurement team. It may look like a lot of folks, but we have the top row there are our co-op specialists and myself. They take care of all of our purchasing co-ops at the ESC. And then the staff at the bottom, they take care of all of our internal purchasing and things at the ESC. So the folks you'll see more often when it comes to the co-op folks are myself and Cristina Carizales Escobar, Robert Mayave, Daisy Cuevas, who is also here. Daisy, where are you? Are you here? Oh, she's outside. And Idania Gonzalez is here too. They're in the back. They were the ones passing out the beads, and so they're right back there. So thank you guys. We could not have made this fresh produce bid opportunity come about through the South Texas Co-op members without the team effort. So very excited about that. Am I okay on time? So we're going to transition now to our panelists. So we have with us today, I know I introduced them earlier, but we'll go through them again. Joseph Hagan here, would you like to tell us a little bit about what you do? Is it on?
We are now.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm with the McAllen Farmers Market. We are located at 4001 North 23rd in McAllen. And what we do primarily is work with local small farmers, home gardeners who are looking to try to get into the market or put their, get their foot in the door selling produce. So we are really transitioning or allowing folks to transition to go ahead and see whether or not that's something that they want to do, and or if you have somebody who has produce that doesn't fit within the parameters of the Region 1, this gives you an opportunity to market your materials directly to the consumers. So that's what we do.
Thank you. And Abraham Lopez with FAR San Juan Alamo ISD.
Hello?
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Thank you. So I'm Abraham Lopez. I'm with FAR San Juan Alamo ISD, a local school district here in the Valley. I started in 2019 a farm-to-school program at our school district, and we've been slowly trying to get farmers, mostly local produce, into the schools. And as child nutrition directors and those that work there, you know how hard it is. Just one thing that came to mind was the last time someone selling produce to our district was added was over 25 years ago. And that just shows how little our system in the school district has changed or changes. So that's one of the challenges I was faced when trying to buy more local. And those are the things that I hope to share today on how to get local, those questions on geographic. I had some cheap ways to get local produce. So that's what I do. We also grow, fruits and vegetables in gardens at 25 campuses as well. So we're trying to grow both ways. So it's me, myself, but then I have a village behind me. So thank to our child nutrition director and everyone else who's helped along the way. So thank you.
Thank you. And Shakira Raygosa with Tierra Preta Farm in Centilly.
Hello, thank you for being here today. I'm a local grower. Me and my husband have Terra Preta Farm. We're in Edinburgh, Texas, and we have about 20 acres. We grow specifically organically, so no pesticides, herbicides. And we've been selling to schools for, well, it's been 10 years, but little volumes to schools. So we've worked with several of you, and we look forward to learning about working together in the future. And we have a variety of vegetables, over 40 different items that we grow, and we try to grow what's needed. So we like to have those conversations and find out what you're using. And I'll share a little bit about our experiences and how it went for us.
Thank you. Right, so we're going to move on to our panelist discussion. The first item we're going to start with is how we can bridge the gap between child nutrition programs and local growers and incorporate more locally grown produce into school cafeterias. And I know, Abraham, you touched on that just a moment ago. Can you share with us what PSJ AISD has done to successfully facilitate utilizing more locally grown produce?
Yes, so one thing we did was create menu items. So we had to talk with our in-house chefs to create menu items that incorporate local produce. So what does that look like? Kale, how does that look like in our salad bars? How can we incorporate it into existing items so it's not more work for our dietitians, for our cafeteria staff, for even our warehouse, how we store it as well. So those were the little things we did in-house, what's working. I love to share what doesn't work, so you can not waste your resources there. And I'm all ears for what is working over there. So we're having issues with our kale, finding in innovative ways. So one way I came up, actually our cafeteria managers came up with the idea, was making it prepared already, having those little clear bins, and incorporating it with romaine and a little bit of spinach. So they don't even know the kale's in there, as opposed to having them, pick up in their little tray and like, I don't know what that is. So those are the things that we can do to incorporate, and we don't have to start big. My idea was, hey, our high schools have salad bars. Let's incorporate local at our salad bars. And that was perfect, right? Low quantities, not much risk. But those are the ways that we can do. Menu goes a long way, so menu planning. The summer's coming up, and I know that's when we create our menus for the whole school year. So talking to the farmers, what is it that you are growing at what months? And then, doing that and overlapping it with what we currently serve. I know just for right now, last week we did the June menu, or just kind of tweak it, and watermelons is showing up. I know most of us serve watermelons. That's grown local. So we could serve, I don't know if you have enrichment camps, I know we're serving meals at our 45 campuses. So watermelon was an easy way to incorporate local. It's already grown here, it's June, let's do it. Cucumbers as well, it's a little harder in June, but in May, for those that are serving cucumbers in May, you could have done local as well. So it's one of those things where we're not reinventing our menu, we're already using it, and it's just finding those ways where we could plug in what's grown local into our menus without having to do this new menu items. I know it gets complicated. So that's just one of the little tricks, or more I say just one of the things I learned by talking to the farmers, figuring out what is it that they have and how I could incorporate it.
Thank you. Shakira, as a local grower, what are the main challenges you face when it comes to supplying local fresh produce to schools?
Well, the first challenge is to find out which schools are looking for local produce. And I know it was nice to attend the event so we could meet each other at the expo. But just finding out which schools are sourcing local. And then the second one was to have the product, but also in the right presentation. So many times if they're asking for pre-cut or pre-packaged items, that's kind of more labor intensive for the farmer, and we might not have the facilities or the staff to do that. So that has been challenging, as well as delivery. Since we have a smaller a team with us, we're not able to make deliveries to multiple school sites. So what has been helpful is we've been working with PSGA, for example, and they have a central kitchen. So we've been able to just take it to one location, and that's helped a lot.
Great, thank you. Abraham, I hear sometimes from districts that the cafeteria staff doesn't like the extra prep and cleaning that often comes with some of the locally sourced products. So how can schools overcome the pushback?
So I understand it's more work if not done properly. So what I mean by that is we currently already process some items. So just as PSJ, we process our peppers, we process our tomatoes, we cut them up. So finding those items that we already do the work is perfect for those farmers that don't have to do it, right? So I can then say, Shakira, if you grow any peppers, we can process them. We'll take it whole. So first, just the low-hanging fruit for school district is finding those items that we currently process. This may not work for everyone. I know we're a bigger school district, but find those items that we do process or that you take whole. We take whole watermelons. So that helps out the farmer because all they have to do is put it in, right? Nothing else. So finding those things, and then education goes a long way. So what I'm doing now is trying to find avenues to find those resources that can teach our staff how to serve these items. As we get more local, we get into little niche vegetables, right? But that's what I want our kids to eat, right? I want our kids to eat local foods that we may not traditionally eat, but it is grown local, so it's a part of us. But the work is there if not done properly. So, take your time, figure out the items that you see you can start up, and then just for example, I asked our cafeteria staff how long it would take for us to do a cabbage kale salad with our pupusas. I don't know if you know, but we serve pupusas, and it takes about 15 minutes, which she would normally take to do the other salad. So that was something that we could, switch. Not much more work, but I like to do the groundwork of talking to our staff that does it all the way from receiving. I asked them, how are you receiving the items? Is it more work? He's like, no, it's easier, right? It's less items. So, I want to keep tabs on that just to ensure that it's no more workload on everyone, because I feel that if we don't take care of our staff, then they won't take care of us. And I know we love the initiative. It's more work, but I want the work to fall on me as opposed to our staff.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the panel as a whole, and I know Shakira, you touched on this a bit earlier, but there is kind of a distribution challenge sometimes in getting the product from the growers to the cafeterias, to the campuses. Many of the local growers don't have, they can't deliver directly sometimes to all of the school campuses. So in y'all's opinion, how can the growers and distributors and school districts work together towards a solution?
Well, I know one thing we can do is to work with local distributors so they can help manage and aggregate produce from a lot of small growers and then make those deliveries if they have the trucks, the refrigerated trucks, and the staff to do that. So that's one option. Right now, I'm working with a group of growers under our nonprofit Centennial Center. They're very small growers producing maybe one box of produce. And so we work with them and we have the transportation available to help them get it to the school. So that's an option for small growers, is find a distributor that's already working with schools that you can work with. And then also just talk to the child nutrition staff, and usually there's a way to work it out. So, thankfully, when we were talking with them, we've been able to just deliver to one location, and then they've been able to distribute it. So if there's funds for that, if you have extra staff, you can take on that work for the farmer. That's also really helpful.
Anyone else?
So one thing you can do is we started with our high school salad bars, so it doesn't have to be, we have 45 campuses, so it doesn't have to be every campus. So for those that do get deliveries at schools, think about doing one school. Call it your pilot school for those that are wondering, or start off with your middle school, a middle school. So that's how I envisioned it if I had to, because I also felt, I was like, what if they have to, like our bread and our milk delivers at every campus? What if that was the only choice? So I would have picked with just one school, then if it's going well, go with two. But as she mentioned, we also have drivers as well that move stuff internally. So one school, the closest one to them, can potentially receive and then ship to whatever school is needed. But, we don't have to start all campuses 100%. It could be 5% of our produce comes local, 10%, and we scale every year accordingly. And then one other example you can use is for those that don't have, I know some districts don't have a central kitchen, but more specifically don't have the space to store these. So for those, we'll get creative with like watermelons or oranges. That doesn't have to be in a cooler, right? It could be in a refrigerator or it could be at room temperature. So it's playing with those temperatures. That's something that we know, and we understand we have to do food safety guidelines. So that's why having someone inside the child nutrition program working on getting that is detrimental on its success. I like to say that I'm an allowable expense because I could get paid to do so, but it's very important because we have all these rules that we have to comply with, and it's important because the farmer doesn't know. He just says, he just hears, we can't, right? But it's more than that, we love to, but we have to do this, right? So I'm working out the kinks, hoping you all can do, and so that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. One item that's been a hot topic is the limited amount of grade A produce that might be available for our school districts to use. So what are some ways we might be able to tap into opportunity to use product that is not necessarily grade A?
There we go. All right. So the farmers market, one of the things that we see a lot of in the farmers market is ugly fruit, ugly vegetables. So people come up and ask all the time, how do you know that the person that's selling it is actually grows that product? And I always say, just look at it. Because if you compare what you see at the farmers market versus what you see at HEB, there's a world of difference in that, the carrots are too long, they're too big, they're too fat, they've got two heads on them. They've got things that don't pass or would not work for HEB or anybody else in the grocery store business, but it doesn't change how it tastes. It doesn't change how it tastes. And I think the thing is that if you work with staff, your kitchen staff and folks, and try to work with their expectations, then I think that gives them an opportunity to utilize that product, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with that, that two-headed carrot. It's still a carrot. And so that's part of it is that in the farmer's market, or it was really interesting, they had, USDA said 30% of the produce, at least 30% of the produce is wasted. And so a farmer's market gives you an opportunity to tap into it, sell that product, and the farmer is able to get, benefit from that by selling it directly to the consumer. So that's one way that you can kind of do that. And the other thing is, as has been mentioned, working with the staff and get them to realize it's still usable, it's still edible, it's not necessarily grade A, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still good. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? So one kind of hot topic also for our school districts is they're required to comply with federal, state, and local procurement regulations. Now, with the new update to the local geographic preference, that's going to give a lot more flexibility. But what are some opportunities for school districts to sort of work around those procurement regulations or within those parameters?
Oh, I was just going to mention,
Oh.
it goes in line with following state regulations. I don't know if there is a requirement that schools must purchase grade A produce, and that's, no. So I guess that you have the power when you're writing your bids or proposals, a request for proposals, that you don't specify looking for grade A when you're trying to find local produce, or make some exceptions for that.
Yes. So expanding those bid specifications to include other grades and not just specify those grade A. Thank you. Yes, good ideas.
Yes, so I'm gonna touch up a little the grades. We haven't delved into it, and the only reason why is this mostly matters when we're serving whole, like our oranges or apples. Our biggest concern at the child nutrition side will be if it's of the right size. We can always give a little bit more, but we can never give a little bit less. So that's our biggest issues with, you know, those ugly foods. It's not necessarily that they're ugly, but that they may not be half a cup or a full cup. You know, those things that we care in the sense of USDA guidelines. But we're talking about those that are just scarred, right? Those that have the little lines that are not perfect, what you consider perfect food. With those items, then it doesn't really matter, right? We could get creative on our end, right? We understand that if we cut the orange in four, our elementary kids will eat it more than if we leave it whole, right? That's where we get creative in, hey, we're gonna serve ugly food, but then we make it pretty, right? So it's finding those workarounds where we can still serve, and I mean, when you split it in four, the kid's gonna eat it regardless of how it looks outside, right? It's like, hey, I don't have to do the work. And then can you repeat the next question was?
Oh, sorry. It was about complying with the federal, state, and local procurement regulations, just with those purchasing regulations when buying local.
So I didn't know that came out. So what we came up with was, I know USDA is very lax when it comes to define what local is. And before it could be anything in your state or your surrounding states. And that's, for some states it's fine, right? But we're Texas, so we're huge. And that kind of allows us to buy from basically anyone, at least I feel. So we said it must be grown within the RGV, and that limited what was offered for local, and that helped us out. But then we still had a lot of growers around us, and then so the reason why we didn't say miles or the before was, hey, say within 150 miles. Well, some producers called, the first time we said 50 miles from our central kitchen. Some producers called and they said, well, it comes from Mexico. Well, it is 50 miles from you. I was like, well, you know what? You're right. Never mind. We're grown within the RGV, and that's our geographical preference, right? The other thing was we still have producers said, hey, I'm in the RGV. I technically count. And they did. So what we had to do is we had to add an additional line that said, must allow field visits. And you'll be surprised, that excluded almost all our producers, because even though you may sell to me, it doesn't mean I'm allowed in your farm. So having that connection, which goes with responsible, responsive, that's how we got away with buying, right? And that's just working with what USDA gave us and trying to find those farmers. Of course, it was more work because then we had to do that responsible, responsive. But that's how we were able to buy local without excluding those major ones. And I said, I mean exclude, but we were not buying hundreds in dollars. We just, you know, we wanted to do the salad bar. We wanted to do those little items. But those were the little tricks I was going to share. But now that we can put local, it helps out so much because there were still ways that we have, and we still have huge producers bidding on these items because technically it does come from local. But we're trying to reduce those food miles. We're trying to reduce that food waste and keeping and buying as fresh items as we can.
And if I may expand on what Abraham just touched on, question for the school districts: are you all currently, when you purchase your produce, are you all doing micro purchase, or are you doing awarding by line item, or are you doing aggregate purchases? What's y'all's response on that? I mean, do we do the micro purchase only to one vendor, and then once we hit that threshold, then we venture off for 3 quotes, or do we do our due diligence and get the required minimum of 3 quotes while doing our purchases? I mean, that's another question that you.
We did the 3 quotes, but now that we're moving towards local, we're going to revisit the way that we bid it out, and then maybe, we've got some ideas, so I think we're headed in the right direction. So we're excited about the opportunities to work with the farmers.
Thank you.
What school district?
Brownsville.
Any other school district want to chime in? Give us your
Come on, Lorenzo, don't be shy.
your valued
I'm gonna call you
information.
out.
What process are you all utilizing? Okay. Do y'all have a fresh produce bid currently in place?
have a RFP currently, and we're using a bonfire. It was in-house bid, so we're using, we started three companies awarded to us.
And which companies are those, if you don't mind me
We
asking?
have Brothers, Mitchell, and Buckley.
Oh,
Good.
good. Thank you. Any other school district comments? Process?
Yeah, it's important for us, like right now, we're identifying how much organic, how much local, are we gonna do a hub, or are we gonna do versus local? How are we gonna work with that, so that when we go to the farmer or the grower, here's our one pager goal, and this is what you know that we're trying to accomplish. So I think
I like that.
that's really exciting.
Thank you.
Great. And so for our growers and suppliers in the room too, I just want to say, don't forget about those bid opportunities that our school districts have, like registering in the bonfire, or their procurement systems that they use. I know it may be scary or daunting, but it's really pretty user-friendly and easy to use. So just go for it, right? Don't be afraid.
I'm sorry, Lori, and if I may expand on that. But currently, our fresh produce bid, we do have over 200 items, line items on the RFP. We're working on expanding, adding more. We do want to incorporate more local fresh produce. We do currently have local fresh produce on that bid, but we do want to expand on that. So if y'all have any new items, if y'all are looking into, joining in on this RFP, reach out to me. And if you're saying, you know what, I'm utilizing this fresh produce item, I don't see it on the bid, can you add it? Give me the forecast. What are y'all expecting to utilize for the next school year? And we'll make sure we get those quotes, and we'll add that items into that RFP. We're here to assist you all, okay? We want to take that burden away from you and let us do the legwork for you. Let us be your guide. Let us do the dirty work for you guys. Because I know, because I've been in your shoes. I come from that side of the fence, so I know how it is. You got to get that fresh produce bid every week. And sometimes, you got other things that you need to take care of, right? But that's what we're here for. That's what Region 1 ESC is all about. It's about to provide that good customer service, not only to our members, but to our students. Thank you.
Thank you. So we would like to get more traction and utilize more local vendors for our fresh produce bid that we do for our school district. So just kind of asking our panel, what are some ideas that you have that could help us reach that goal?
I think many, like we mentioned, like small farmers, we're trying to meet those requirements. For example, the GAP certification, the food safety plans. If there's assistance for growers, to offer those trainings to get them prepared to meet those requirements ahead of the bid request. And also just having those conversations to know what are the volumes expected. And as a grower, we're kind of hesitant to make commitments a year out. Like, we are hesitant to make commitments for a month or a week. We never know how much we're going to have in the end, and things fluctuate so much on the farm. So just being flexible with the farmers, and so they understand the process, and all sides understand how farming works, and the seasons, that'll help get more participation. And lastly, just that commitment and trust. If a farmer is going to grow like 2 acres of produce and they're expecting to sell that, but then at the same time they still have to bid on it and they're not sure if they're going to be awarded or not, that's a lot of risk for a farmer to take. And that's another main reason why some of them have decided maybe to go to other outlets versus schools, because of that lack of commitment. And I don't know if there's a possibility to start making those agreements or contracts, because there's some farmers that have the capacity, like they have the land to grow more, but they're not going to plant it if they don't have any agreements. So we can also maybe meet the volumes and grow together, but we need to have those commitments in place.
Great, thank you.
There's 2 things that come to mind that we can do now and then we can do later. So now, for those school districts that apply for the LSF grant, the local school food grant, that is a great thing we can do now, right? Those funds are allocated to buy local, and that's where the Region 1 produce bid works, because you can just buy from them right off the bat. So that's something we can do now. But I think the other one that will take time will be revisiting our local rules, right? I have to do 3 bids. That's something that our district decided. I can't get around that, right? But those rules were set in place for a reason. But if we talk with our district, we talk with our administrators and let them know, hey, this is the reason why, I think we can work something out, right? Maybe decrease that from 3 to 2, and that would help me out so much. But that's something that would take a long time, but also is changing the perception of what the best food for our kids is. For a long time, it was what the prettiest food is, must mean that it's the best food, but it's changing that mentality that, you know, we understand, or we need to learn that the food that is grown local is healthier for these reasons, right? That's where the education component comes in. But that's where we need to change that mentality, right? We need to be open-minded. And if we don't know about it, that's okay. That's what UTRGV is for. That's what Region 1 is for. We have all these avenues that can teach us of the best ways to do so and not being afraid. Thankfully, I've had several bosses that were open-minded to it. They're like, Abraham, I have no clue what you do, but you go for it, right? And just having that behind me gives me so much confidence, because, you know, they're putting their faith in me, and that gives me wings, right? So hire young people, right? So they take off. But that is truly, you know, having those people that don't say no and are like, you know what, if you figure it out, let's do it. And we need more people like that. So that's what I would recommend you do. I know I'm here as a resource. Even if you're from another district, call me, email me. Hey, Abraham, I'm trying to do this. What have you done? So I've called several of you all. You may not remember, but every time I would hear, hey, this person bought from this district, I would call, hey, how did you do it? Oh, we did RFQ, right? We did this 1-year contract. So all those things help build what we currently have at PSJ, and I'm more than willing to share, because my kids are your kids. You know, some of us are separated by 10, 20 feet. I have schools that are right next to other school districts. So my kids are your kids, and I think they deserve the best food that we can give them.
Thank you.
One of the things that, and Shakira mentioned this, is that farmers need certainty, because they put the seeds in the ground. They're hoping that it's going to rain, that they're going to have water, that things are going to work out. And so you're asking them to, you know, you've got a contract, you've got something that you're going to specify for them, and they are not sure it's going to work. They're not sure it's going to work. So there's a lot of uncertainty in farming. And so that's where you need to try to work with the farmers, encourage them, and as Shakira mentioned, you know, have the guidelines, the things that you're needing, and I know in any type of situation where you've got things that you need to have, you know, certain things that you need to have done, but they need that assurance that at the end of the process you're going to be able to buy their product, because if they can't sell it to you, then they're stuck with, you know, that 2 acres of kale, or that, you know, and so I know from the farmers, that's their biggest concern is, are they going to be able to sell it? And so you know, farmers markets in general help to with that, but the thing is that you have to grow that capacity. So if you've got somebody that you're looking to get, 500 or, however many cases that you're hoping to get, in that yearly period, they have to have the capacity to be able to produce that. So it's that assurance, working with them, and I know that you're looking for, okay, are they going to be able to deliver? Are they going to be able to grow it? So there's lots of things that they're having to do in order to be able to meet that demand that you're looking for. And so I know that you can't assure them if they can't grow it, and they can't grow it if they don't have that assurance. So that's where that cooperation, where those, that mutual trust has to be developed. And it's working with that individual person, working with that individual farmer, so that they can go ahead and meet the needs that you're looking for. And so it's connections. Just like at a farmer's market, we have certain vendors who people will go to that vendor and they will stand in line for 30 minutes, whereas there's somebody else who has, carrots just like the other carrots, but they don't want to go to that person. Why? Because they have a connection with that farmer. So you need to develop those connections with their farmers so that they can have that assurance, you can have that, and that's how you start local. That's how you work it out. That's how you were able to make that. But it's going to take work. So there's no shortcut to it. So unfortunately, I wish there was, but there's not.
Thank you. Well, I think that might be a good segue into our Q&A. Yeah. So let's just go ahead and we'll open it up for questions and answers. So our audience, do you have some questions for us?
I have a question. Can I borrow the mic?
Yes.
For the live streamers, I think we need the mic. But
Yeah. Oh,
so,
sorry.
a quick question around something that I don't know who mentioned it. Was it Robert or Lori? Around needing gap and needing a HACCP plan, and Shakira alluded to this. Is that necessary? I get it. Schools need that sort of confirmation that the food's going to be safe, that things are food safety rules are being followed. But there's I guess do those certifications, which cost money and a ton of administrative burden on the farmer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that essential for the schools to have from the grower to accept the produce?
And I think when we're looking at expanding to more local growers and producers, I definitely think that's something we can revisit with our cooperative members. Again, we're kind of the in-between, the co-op members. Our school districts, we're sort of that in-between connection to the local growers, producers, and all the vendors that we work with through our cooperative. So that's definitely something that we could revisit and maybe come up with maybe a different sort of checklist or an alternative that might still reassure the school districts that the food coming from the farm is still good, safe, wholesome, but maybe not necessarily requiring that GAP certification. Thank you. Other questions? So, free GAP training for small and medium farmers. We need that information. Okay, great. Great.
That's an opportunity for those that are limited in their funds and they just don't think they can take that step.
Okay, thank you. And that's something also, if we can help in any way in hosting or facilitating some of those GAP certifications or trainings for the local growers and farmers, we're also happy to do that. So I'm sure we can host some events at the service center, maybe to bring folks in or whatever it is we need to know. We'll definitely make connections with UTRGV and see maybe how we can assist with that too. Yes.
One question that I have is how much schools are actually using and what kind of capacity needs to be there, as well as what products and where folks can find that through you all. I think how much is needed? What is the real capacity?
But when you ask the question, how much is needed, what do you refer to? Quantity?
Quantity.
Is there a limit, amount?
Is there, where can growers go to fulfill that need, right? What is that process like a bit more?
Well, that goes back to when we submit that request for proposal. It goes back to the numbers that we submit when we launch that request for proposal in the E-by-One portal system. I mean, right there, that information is what the vendor is going to see and the quantities that we're requesting, right? So at that point, I mean, they do have the opportunity to either submit their offer or don't, right? I mean, we would not want for them to shy away because of that, but still, submit that RFP. And because at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to happen, right? Once we close that bid and we see which vendors responded to our RFP, you don't know what may happen. We can work on not only, because when we award vendors, we're not just, well, I know that pricing holds the most weight, but we're also looking at geographic, can that vendor provide services to certain areas, or if they're saying on one of their questions, we could only provide services to school districts in, let's say, the lower Rio Grande Valley, let's say from Harlingen down to Brownsville or up to Hebronville or whatnot in the east side of the valley. Fine, that's great. And then we may have another vendor that says, well, you know what, I could only provide services in the Mid-Valley from Weslaco to maybe McAllen. So we'll take that into consideration as well. So we don't only just look for price, but we also look for other factors, okay? So again, as I mentioned, for the vendors who want to conduct business with Region 1 Education Service Center, do not shy away when it comes to submitting that RFP. Do it, because you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day.
Yeah. And
What if farmers don't have the volumes that are requested? Are you able to award both multiple vendors at the same time?
yes, we can award multiple vendors. So even if it's just a small quantity, that's okay. We'd love to have that opportunity for the local growers and producers, as well as our school districts. We'll make it work. We will make it work. And I think we're just really trying to, as we're getting this fresh produce bid sort of growing and expanding as far as our school district members, we've had more interest in it. We're adding more items to it on a monthly basis as well. And in there you can see the estimated quantities are available for each of the items. So you have that information as if you're looking at volume and items, all of that is in there. So we have that posted on our website. So you have that available for you to look at. You can see right now currently all of the items the school districts are currently requesting, as well as that volume as far as number of cases or whatever, however it's packed. Thank you.
And if I may add to that, Lori. So I did add some more items to the fresh produce bid. Once I launched it, we did have some school districts reach out to me stating, you know what, I want to add these items. I don't see them on the bid. What can I do? So I just asked, send me that forecast for the year, and I'll go ahead and I'll get quotes. And then once we get those quotes, we'll award that item to the awarded vendor, or whoever gets the bid on that line item, and we'll add it to the bid. So it's grown. Like I mentioned earlier, I want to add more items to that list. This fresh produce bid, is the way I see it, it's still in the works. We want to make it stronger. This is our first year. So, we're learning as we're going along as well. Not to say that we don't know what we're doing. We do know what we're doing, but we do want to make it or build it more stronger. And I guess with some trial and errors, we will get there to where we bring in more school districts and get involved into utilizing this bid. Thank you.
It is a work in progress, and so every month you'll sort of see that as we add new items and add requests from our school district members. You see that growing, and it's continued to grow, and we're happy about that. But again, we want to see it grow further, especially in regards to the local growers. So we definitely look forward to meeting you guys, having you call us, sit down, we'll go through the bid process with you. That's what we're here for, that's what we want to do. So I don't want you to be intimidated by that whole process. Any other questions from the audience? Yes?
I have a question about pricing. It was mentioned as a challenge, and I'm just wondering, I guess, Shakira, in your experience, has pricing ever been an issue? Have you been told your prices are too high? What would that conversation kind of look like on the school end as well? Would that be negotiated, or would that, it's just, your price is too high, moving on to the next vendor?
So in our unique situation, we've been able to work with schools who are looking for local produce. We cannot compete with wholesale distributor pricing. And we've tried to actually sell to the distributors, and they're not really looking specifically for our organic products. That hasn't been like a big item that's hot for schools. So selling organic and local, trying to compete with distributor prices, we couldn't do it. So what we've been able to do is they've been able to tailor bids to specifically say local organic, and that way we can have more competitive pricing. And so that's how we've been able to work that out, is to have schools actually put out bids looking for that local organic, and they understand it's going to have a higher value because of how it's grown and it's local. And we have worked with several schools that have done that, and we've been able to, there haven't been some, I think no one's ever said that, that's too high, we can't buy it. So thankfully, I mean, we try to always price but based on the market and have fair pricing, and it's worked out that they've accepted the bids that we've put out there, and it's been mostly on that. We had conversations prior, like, what do you have available? And then so they know what we have, and they can expect that. We have been trying to reach out and to work more with distributors, and maybe that's something we could do as well, and try and let them know that when you're buying local, we can't give you the same price as a big grower as well. So distributors, if you're looking to work with local farmers and buy organic, just understand that the prices aren't going to be the same.
I have a question on that. For the awarded vendors of the fresh produce bid, how do you base your price? Is it through CPI report, or is it through labor and material utilized to harvest that crop? How do you base your prices on? Want to expand on that, Mr. Verdun?
It's typically the farmers, right? So we're not doing any of the growing ourselves. We're sourcing it from other growers. But from what I've seen, it's based on both the crop duration, the labor inputs, market pricing from the terminals, from USDA. USDA publishes those reports, and just making sure that ends meet, that there's enough to go around at the end of the day, right? That's what I've seen.
So regarding pricing, our accountant would say we go with the lowest price, right?
Always, don't ask the
Always.
accountant.
If not, we're going to get audited, right? So pricing does matter, sadly, right? And we understand. So I have numbers for our CMP of our March and how much the price difference was. And let me tell you, for the small quantities that you will buy, will be marginal, almost, it's worth it, right? I won't show it to the farmers just because out of respect for the farmers that we deal with, but I do have those numbers if you want to see it. How much for our garden salads, we weren't paying that much of a difference, right? The difference we were doing, it was more of an impact on the health of the kids than the price dollar. But I know for us, it's the lowest bidder always wins. And if not, there's ways that USDA allows us, the responsible, all those, but that comes with additional paperwork. And I know sometimes we just, all right, we'll just go with the lowest bid. So that lets us to create two bid items. But the reason why we created two bid items is because of volumes. I know you mentioned volumes. They won't know how much they have before, a week and a half if you're lucky, just because, things happen. And then we need to know we won't know how much we order bi-weekly, right? So we won't know how much I need till 2 weeks. So it kind of works well, but what if they don't have it? That's always been an issue, and that's what the first child nutrition director had. What if they don't have it? So what we did is we did an additional line. So let's say we have watermelons, and then we have local watermelons. So the reason why we bid out for local watermelons, for normal watermelons, is to have that fail-safe. In the off chance that the farmer calls up and say, hey, we had rain, we lost it, something, I have that fail-safe on us. Like, don't worry, that's why I bid it out regular watermelons. Or what you can have happen is, hey, you need 10 boxes, I can only do 5. I can do 4, I can do 3. Don't worry, I have the other regular watermelons that can do what you can't.
To fill that gap. Right.
That's where the work comes in, right? That's where they get mad at me, right? Because it's a little bit more work on our part. But it's until we are confident that the farmer, we've been working with Shakira these past 3 years. We're confident she can give us 20 pounds at all times. She may maybe always give us more, but at least 20 pounds we can for sure count on her. So it's creating that trust, that relationship is really going to help us out. And we're learning those things. I have things that haven't worked, things that need improvement. But, those are the ways we can figure out, I want to put the burden on us. If she comes up and says, hey, I can only do 3 boxes instead of the 10, we have that fail-safe, what I like to call, right? And that's just finding creative ways on our end to mitigate for those risks, right? I want to take the risk as opposed to the farmer. They're already taking enough risks. So finding those creative ways is what we've done, but there's 100 more. I'm curious to see how have you done it? So that's one of the ways, price, sadly, we go with the lowest price, which talks back to revisiting the local procurement. That's USDA, so we can only do so much. But that's one way we've done it. So any other questions?
Hi, I'm Jeremy with the Common Market. This is Marcelino. He is part of our team. We work with Shakira. We are a nonprofit food distribution company based out of Houston. We source a lot of product here from the RGV, and we do the school bids. One of the problems that you mentioned is the ability to consistently predict that volume, and also talking about how, from a procurement standpoint or from a purchasing standpoint, week to week, you don't know exactly what you're going to need based on maybe what you had left over from last week or seasonal changes, or maybe you have a field trip this week and so you don't need as much, or something comes up where you need more the following week. What we do is we kind of aggregate all of that. We have multiple farms like Shakira's that we work with, and we have the ability to make sure that they have all their certifications. We oversee and we kind of keep the paperwork for GAP certifications and certified organic and those sorts of things, certificates of insurance, all of their food safety documentation. We also have that for ourselves for our own warehouse. And what we can do is provide those same bids, but have multiple potential vendors that then we can work with on the hyper local level and kind of in real time to say, okay, if we need 20 cases of watermelons and Shakira says I can do 8 this week, well, I have several other vendors that I can work with that are already part of this bid process. So we kind of do a little bit of the work on both ends. We provide the continuity for the farmers because we can take whatever they can give us and we can use part of it for the school bid and part of it for the other products that we're selling wholesale or that we do. We have our own kind of CSA boxes. We do about 4,000 CSA boxes a week. So we can fulfill a lot of product in those boxes, and that gives us the ability to kind of take whatever they can come up with. And Shakira and I have had multiple conversations where it's like, I have less of this week, but I have more of that. And for us, it's pretty much the same. Now with these school bids, it's a little bit more precise, but if we have 3 or 4 vendors that we are working with regularly, we can kind of provide that, and then we don't have to necessarily say, all right, we can only do part of this. You have to go back and talk to your other potential bid winners. We can literally fulfill all of that on both ends. So just to kind of talk about one of the ways that some of the And Hernan's group does similar things, I'm sure. There are some non-Labatt, non-Hardee's, hyper-local, like we do only Texas. All of our product comes from Texas. We don't source anywhere else. We have organics, but we also have conventional. We are nonprofit, but our kind of value proposition is that it's local and that we're uplifting all of those small local farmers, primarily underserved farmers. So that's kind of where we can kind of fill in that gap. And I'm sure that there are other groups out there that are doing something similar.
Thank you. I have another question.
Hi, Abraham. I have a follow-up question for you about leading up to this change in geographic preference. How have you been able to have two line items, one local and one non? I know you mentioned some creative ways prior. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So the way we bid is just by line items. It's very informal. It's in Excel. So we just create item numbers by what we need. If you see it, it's super long. It just has all items at all times. And that's helped us as well, because sometimes you may have something and we didn't know that you had it in season. And once we see it, they're like, hey, that can be there. For those, it's very kind of, every district does it differently. So that's the way we do it. And we can add certain items, even if it's repeated. It's repeated, but it's not really repeated because we're asking for two different things. The reason how it started was, I know USDA has the Farm Fresh initiative, so I know that's, you all know, and then Turnip the Beet, that's coming in June. So that's how it started, right? And then we had to require, we made lines grown in Texas. That's how we started delving into that, those adding additional ones, until we decided to create another item number because we want it grown within the RGB. So we need to find those, and it's allowable, right? And if it's not, you know, just talk to me and be like, hey, you can stop that. But it's allowable. But of course, there's still rules with it, right? We still have to justify why. Why is there another item number? And if we ever do get audited, we will have to bring out the responsive, and all of that, which is fine for us, but you know, that deters some school districts and say, hey, we don't want to take the risk, unnecessary risk, right? Or they consider. But I think the benefits outweigh all of that, right? So that's for the items. Any other question?
More questions?
I have a 2-acre farm, work with growers of up to 20,000 acres plus in my day job. So I understand the food safety requirements and everything that the larger growers go through. Our operation is currently exempt from the food safety regulations. And I mean, I would love nothing more than to grow our operation into something much bigger that would require me to have those regulations. But from everything I'm hearing, we don't really have a place if we're at the scale that we're at right now. And, you know, one thing when I look at the local food industry in general is, you know, there's another thing that small operations, you know, even as large as Shakira's, because I consider theirs small, you know, one of the things we can offer the schools is the education component where they can come to the farm versus, you know, these multi-thousand acre farms that don't want anyone there because of food safety regulations. Is any of that being taken into consideration in the bids and, you know, potential higher pricing and things like that?
It should be. And I think there's very, excuse me for blurting out, but I've been thinking that same thing. And just, I know we were at Rio Fresh and Chris Bueno was saying that water restrictions, they've been given 30% of their normal ration to expect. But to me, there's incentive to local farmers that are providing food to children at school districts should very possibly be on the upper end of that water rationing. So there takes a little bit of that uncertainty about whether you are going to have water to grow these crops for these schools. So I think there's a lot of leverage potential that's in there. There's so much irony in, or good examples of what is going on. And I'm going to ask two things here. And I've heard the story with Mission ISD, that Mission was considered to be the citrus capital of Texas, but maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 100% of the citrus that was being provided in school cafeterias in Mission ISD was coming from where?
Florida, California.
Florida and California, and I believe there was not one piece of citrus that was being served in the Mission ISD that was actually coming from, not only was it not coming from Mission, it wasn't even coming from Texas. And then, Shakira, this is the first, I've heard so much about y'all's farm. This is the first time I'm embarrassed to say that I was on your piece of wonderful soil today. And as I'm looking over just to the east, I'm seeing this school there, and it is a middle school within Edinburgh School District. Memorial, I believe, is the name of it. And I asked, so are any of those kids coming over and having field trips? And at this point, they're not. But that is a connection I see Region 1 really being able to reach out, because I believe, Robert, you showed a picture of the farm to school program, and a big portion of that was school gardens and schools being involved and children understanding where their local food comes from. So all we have to do is put a gate on the other side of the soccer field and football field at Memorial Middle School in Edinburgh, and they can walk right over to the farm, and there's no reason that 80% of your food shouldn't be going to that school. And anyway, but those are two good examples of the problems or the unintended consequences that the current policies and processes and procedures have created. So I compliment everybody, Region 1, for being here today to open up this dialogue. Brownsville ISD, I've heard wonderful things about Brownsville Child Nutrition. I'd like to meet with y'all a little bit later, and Mission, but it is very important for all the school districts within Region 1 to be in these conversations and figure out how do we get more local small farmers, local foods into these school cafeterias and get these kids understanding and having these relationships with stepping foot on farm. So that's my, well, I've got 80, what I was going to say, actually I had 98 more cents, and that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Alan.
I'll mention on that. I think with school districts, we always want what's best for our kids, and those are in place because in case someone gets sick, we can track it all the way to where the farm that had an outbreak. And you know, we're I would say we're scared of that happening and us not being able to track where it came from. So that's why we tend to orient it toward those that have all of those checklists. I understand that they were in place for big farms, big operations, and as we start scaling down, all of these rules may not really, it may not, it's helpful, but it doesn't help the small farmers. And I know TDA has exemptions for small farms, so where does that leave us, right? Do we take the risk of our kids getting sick and not being able to track it? But I also understand that some of these small farms are cleaner, are better than those huge farms. Just because they have that little certification doesn't mean that they're better, right? Because these smaller farms are maintained, are looked at probably more times in those fields. So it's one of those things that we need to, first is USDA, we have to follow, but if they set those rules in place, we can't, overstep. But that's sort of things that it needs to be reconsidered. If TDA is it's not allowing it, then that means we should technically not need it, right? There's nothing in place that forces us for you to have some of these. But we do it because we want to make sure that we can track. It happens, not that it doesn't. But that's why we do it, but doesn't mean we always have to do it. But that's where the trust of the farmer, which is why I believe we write field visits, because we want to see your farm. We want to see how you keep it up. Sometimes we'll say, hey, we're going to pop up at random. We don't want a little dog and pony show. We want to be able to, and the farmer's always welcome. It's like, come by whenever. And that gives us that relief that, they're doing the best that they can. And that just comes with, the district willing to take that risk. but also, it's a calculated risk. It's not something that we do out of, we're not going to buy from a truck outside, right? It must be a clean operation. They must know what they're doing. But that's where building that relationship, starting off small and then scaling from there, really is going to help.
Any other questions from the audience?
I was just going to mention that there are some other alternatives to GAP certification. You could request your producers to present you with copies of their food safety plans, just because if they don't have an audit, they should at least have a plan in place, so you can request those. And also certain growers do have certificates. For example, our farm has a PSA grower training certificate. That's a program that teaches them all about the requirements of food safety and helps them write their plan out. So that's an alternative. You can request for them to have a training certificate so that they do have that education. They know how to implement it on their farm.
Produce Safety Alliance?
Yes, Produce Safety Alliance, PSA, for sure.
Thank you. Shakita, I have a question for you. Our school districts usually, they're only able to process payments usually every 30 days, right? So they pay like a 30-day term. Has that been an issue for you in your operation?
It hasn't been because we are, right now at this point, we're growing on a wholesale level right now. As a small farmer, yes, it could be an issue. I would imagine that if they're just starting out with those quantities, and I think we're used to going to the farmer's market and you receive your payment that day. And so it can have an impact if you've already put in the expense of packaging, processing, and you have to wait 30 days, and you use that income from the sale to go and buy more or purchase more supplies and equipment. So the faster the turnaround, the better for small growers, I would say.
Thank you. Do you want to say something? Oh, okay.
I will say that we actually can help to solve for that because we pay every week. So like we can wait the 30 days, but when the farmer sends the product to us, Shakira sends her product to us on Thursdays. We receive it on Fridays, and as long as I get the invoice, I pay her on Tuesdays. So it's not quite farmer's market turnaround, but it's pretty good. And then we can wait the 30 days. We have accounting people who figure stuff like that out. That's not anything we worry about.
Thank you.
So I have a question. Are your operational costs, are they funded through grants, or are you then taking her prices and then increasing it? Is there a percentage increase back to the school districts?
Yes, so our prices, like whatever we bid would be our price, and that would be irrespective of what we were paying the farmers. We obviously have overhead ourselves, but we are a nonprofit, so our overhead is covered in a variety of ways through grants, but we also are, somebody mentioned the local food for schools funding, so we have the ability to help schools process that grant funding and to be able to utilize that so that they can use those funds for these purchases, and oftentimes those funds allow them to potentially pay a somewhat higher price because we're working with these local farms, we're working with smaller farms, and we're providing, again, a lot of those logistics. We do the pickups. Like when we pick up for Shakira, she doesn't have to pay for any of that shipping. We don't charge her for any of that. That's just a part of our business operation expenses. And of course, that does ultimately get passed on when we are selling that product to the end user, whether that's a school or anybody else. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned that if we were interested in an item, we could let you know. Is that the same thing as when we entered in the Maestro system for the new item and put that bid? Like, or do we really need to put all the specifics? Sometimes we might just know the item, our quantity we were wanting, but it doesn't let us proceed because, it's asking for a little bit more specific items on there as far as maybe like the vendor and things of that nature, or is it just simply sending you an email or still putting it through that and putting other, like maybe we don't know what vendor we're going to bring it through, but we just know for sure, like I want to give you this new item and this is the quantity we're looking for,
Mhm.
and then you all do the work. But
yes.
Do I still put it in that system somehow?
Yes,
Okay.
you can put it in the Maestro system and just input as much information as you can.
Okay.
And if not, you could also send me an email. If you do it through Maestro, that's good, and then just send me a follow-up email like that. I know it's in there.
Okay.
Or if you want to also just put some of the information on your email, and like that, I'll be aware of that.
So on some of the tabs that I don't know or the information for, I just
You could just put
one or
unknown.
zero or
Yeah.
something, and then
Yeah.
okay, I'll go
Unknown.
from there. Thank you.
So with the common market, I'm just having, because what we were thinking about doing as we're setting up our procurement goals is to see, okay, we want to give opportunities to our local farmers. And so we want to keep that money here, and not just with produce, but we're hoping to venture into bakery products and others. So let's say that there is a farmer locally. Do you all accept them at any time, or do you add them, or are you all already, you just work with established growers or farmers? Okay, because as we're looking, because I know Brownsville's not huge, but I mean, it covers a lot of areas. So we're like, okay, do we break it down into clusters or regions, so to speak? Do we allow, so that we can offer farmers, maybe they can't cover the whole district, but, and I know you're talking about how you can make up that amount, but we've already identified some farmers and growers who we want to work with. We can have that conversation. Okay, that's great to know.
And again, that's what we do. We're looking to make those connections, to have those relationships, so we're always open to that. Effectively, my role is to both identify end users, which are primarily anchor institutions, schools, hospitals, as well as political officials and things like that. We work with nonprofits, we work with faith-based organizations, but the other part, and arguably the more important part of our mission, is that we are supporting and uplifting these small, sustainable family farmers. We are not farmers. I've had several different people say, oh, where are your farms and what farms do you have? And you can probably take one look at me and go, that kid doesn't know how to farm. We don't farm. We support the farmers. We need the farmers. We are the middleman. But we have a variety of different mechanisms, most of them financial, but some of them are logistics and, again, food safety paperwork, doing a lot of that so that the farmers can concentrate on what they do. So our goal is to make sure that we are providing our farmer partners with all of the resources that they need to be competitive and to be able to be eligible for these sorts of bids. And then obviously, as the kind of middleman, logistics, procurement, and sales arm, we actually perform a lot of those duties for them so that they can just focus on that. Their price to us is their price to us. There's no negotiations beyond that. We handle all the rest of that. But we're always looking for more partners. We're always looking for partners on both ends of that spectrum. And one of the things, we're based in Houston. Texas, as many of us have already stated, is a massive state. As I'm looking at those 20 regions, I'm like, well, those numbers don't even go in order. So clearly those regions used to be even bigger, and they're getting a little bit smaller as things go along. But we are very much interested. We've been doing this here in Texas for 5 years in figuring out a way to do kind of a hub and spoke model where we would literally have some form of an outlet in the Valley where we were working with Valley farmers and working with Valley customers, and none of the food was leaving the Valley. Because as it is right now, I send some of Shakira's food, some of her produce up to Austin, up to San Antonio, to Houston, which is great. It's great business for her. But at the same time, one of the things that we're not currently doing is sending a lot of that food here into the Valley. And so that's going to be kind of part of our next expansion component.
Because I think that's what we were exploring too, like you said, okay, just exploring, for example, what if we could work with our distributors here locally to pick up, some of the product from our local farmers, and then we get charged on a delivery by case basis. But I think this is really interesting to hear this, because this is also another way that we could do that and not, also support our local farmers. So we're investigating, researching different ways to do it. How do we split up our district? How do we do that? But I think it'd be nice to have those conversations with organizations or agencies such as yourself, so that we could, and I think we've already been having those conversations too with the Institute, but That's what we're kind of trying to do, is have our standard produce to kind of supplement, but then also have a harvest of the month, so to speak, procurement method.
Yeah, and we make long-term commitments to our farmers, and so we work with them on their crop planning, and we provide them with future purchase orders that allows them to have confidence that we are going to be able to purchase that product for, X number of months, seasonality, all those sorts of things. So a couple of weeks ago, Shakira and I were sending some emails back and forth where she's like, this is how far this is going to go, and this is how far that's going to go. And so I started to make those adjustments to my purchase orders that I already have in place. And then I started to look at where I was going to be able to fill in those gaps. But she doesn't have to worry about me having, an issue fulfilling other ends of my obligations, because we understand that there is going to be some overlap of these products, and because we have a variety of outlets for that, it makes it easy for us to make those transitions and to not feel like all of a sudden they're under pressure to harvest too soon, or that they don't know what they can commit their farmland to. We have those conversations long term so that they can plant that and know that they're going to have a market for it. And then if they say we want to plant this, is there going to be a market? Then we go out and ask those questions, because again, I eat very little of it, as it turns out, but we need to find the rest of the end users to do that. But that's part of our role as well.
My name is Rudy Arredondo with Latino Farmers and Ranchers International, and one of the things that, the schools are part of our niche market, and one of the things that concerns us is with regard to some of the barriers with regard to packaging. Because some of the things that we as farmers don't have the resources to be able to meet the requirements of the schools and some and the colleges and universities that we oftentimes deal with. Some of them do. And Ms. Betty Wiggins, who is in the Houston Independent School District, was able to get funding. She was the head of the cafeteria system in Michigan, in Detroit. And she was able to get resources to be able to give the farmers the resources that were needed, including how to process it and to package them. So that is part of our concern with regard to working with the school system in terms of child nutrition programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
No question, just gratitude, a comment of gratitude. I want to say thank you for opening the door and the platform to have these conversations. It's very clear that we have the same goal, which is service our youth, our children, the best food we can. Through TDA and all the funds, through USDA and TDA, we're blessed to be able to give these services to our students. But overall, first timer, thank you, Region 1, for having this platform. Great conversations. Thank you for letting us hear your good and bad part of our contribution to this service to our students. I know we're going to get better. We're going to grow. And again, thank you so much for that and allowing us to provide the best quality service to our kids. And the long-term goal is to always keep them healthy and safe. Battle obesity, battle any food-related disease. And that's what we're here for. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we might be ready to turn it over to our speed meeting. So this is your opportunity for the buyers and the suppliers to network together. So what we did is you should have a bead. And if you don't, we have some folks here that can get you some beads. Our child nutrition folks have the gold beads. Our growers and producers have the green beads. And then those intermediaries, like the distributors and other folks like the ESC who are trying to help facilitate this, should have purple beads. So what we'd like you to do at this time is kind of form little groups of 3. And we have some prompting questions. Of course, you can talk about other things too, right? But we came up with some suggested discussion questions for y'all to talk about. So for buyers, what does your order process look like? What do you need and when? For the producers, how much lead time do you need from from them to order from you? And then do you deliver? Do you do multiple deliveries? And then for those intermediaries, how can y'all help facilitate that? Maybe some of our local distributors. So we also have snacks in the back in case you didn't get a snack or a drink earlier. So there still looks like there's a lot there, so make sure you get some. So if you don't mind, split up into your groups of 3s, gold, purple, and green, and get the discussions going.